I didn't buy it just for the artwork. That would be stupid. But I think it's nice when they make an effort to put some artwork versus like, the Springbank, there's no artwork at all. So welcome to Whiskey and SV. I'm your host Sam, and tonight we'll be nerding out about different types of sherry, and we'll be trying two very special whiskies from the Campbelltown region of Scotland that have been finished in very rare Palo Cortado sherry casks. So before we talk about these bottles, let's talk about different varieties of sherry, because this is a whole world that I actually didn't know much about. And the fact that I tried this Springbank Palo Cortado kind of like brought me to kind of like want to research this and learn more about it. Sherry is a fortified wine, and it has to come from a very specific region in Spain called Jerez. In the same way that if you have sparkly wine that comes from any other region than Champagne, you cannot call it Champagne. Sherry has to come from Jerez in Spain. If it's from some other region, you cannot call it sherry. There are three main grapes that go into making sherry. The most common is the Palomino grapes. Palomino grapes, basically 95% of sherries out there are made with Palomino grapes. The second most popular grape type is Pedro Ximénez. Obviously, it's less than 5%. And Pedro Ximénez is very famous for being very sweet, and the type of sherry that it produces is usually very syrupy and sweet. The final grape type is Moscatel, and Moscatel is extremely rare and hard to find. So the interesting thing about sherry is that it's not just the grape type that makes the type of wine. There's also the aging process, and there are two main types of aging process, and there's an in-between that we'll talk about. So on the one side, you have the fresh type of sherries that are more light-bodied and dry, but they don't have those nutty flavors. And those are the Fino and Manzanilla types, aging types. The difference between Fino and Manzanilla is just a slight sub-region difference, basically. What they have in common is that they do not age with the presence of oxygen. They are not oxidative. Meaning, and the reason why that happens is because they don't have a lot of alcohol. So the alcohol is between 15 and 17%. So a layer of yeast is formed, a thin layer of yeast is formed on top of them as they're aging, and that layer of yeast stops the oxygen from getting to the wine. So basically they end up being quite fresh even if they are aged for several years. On the opposite end, we have oxidative aging. So Oloroso is the most famous type of sherry that is aged oxidatively, and that basically means that when they fortify the wine, when they put the grape spirit into it, they fortify it to above 17 or 18%. So the layer of yeast is not able to survive and is eaten away by the sugars, and you get a lot of oxygen. So it's actually like aged in oak barrels, and and sometimes like they open the oak barrels so that oxygen can get inside. So that oxygen basically causes it to oxidate and have these like darker, deeper, nutty flavors. The only difference between, by the way, Oloroso and Pedro Ximénez, if you've heard, those are two very common types of sherry cask that's whiskey is aged in, is that Oloroso is predominantly Palomino grapes, whereas Pedro Ximénez is obviously Pedro Ximénez type grapes. They're both oxidatively aged, and they're both aged what is called in the Solera system, meaning they have like a bunch of different barrels. The oldest ones are at the bottom, and then they have this like layered system of aging where it's like an infinity blend of ages, sort of. So yeah, both Oloroso and Pedro Ximénez are very common in the whiskey industry. Obviously, Oloroso more because that's like the majority of it, and Pedro Ximénez less. And usually, when you get something that's Pedro Ximénez or PX, it's much more expensive. Now, so Fino Manzanilla on one side, and then Oloroso and Pedro Ximénez on this side. And now there's a category in between that's a hybrid of these two. And those two types are Amontillado and Palo Cortado. Amontillado is what is called an intentionally hybrid aged sherry. The way it works is they take some of the pheno casks and they decide, oh, we want to age these in a hybrid way. So they fortify them further, meaning they will add some extra grape spirit to it. And the extra grape spirit will cause that yeast floor to go away, and then the more some oxygen can get in. So Amontillado ends up being a hybrid fresh under the floor and oxidative sort of aged sherry, meaning it'll have some nuttiness, but it also have some resemblance to Fino. The Palo Cortado is a special type of hybrid where they don't actually do this intentionally. It's called accidental. Basically, some of the casks are special, and somehow naturally, for some magical reasons, the floor just goes away, and those are specially selected to be aged and sold as this Palo Cortado brand that is the most special and rarest one. Only 2 to 3% of all cherry, I believe, is Palo Cortado. It might be even less than that actually. And where the name comes from is actually sort of interesting as well, because uh, apparently the barrels, the pheno barrels, they just have a line on them when they're checked. And if the person who's tasting or looking at it decides that they're special and the floor is going away, then they put an extra line in it, and it looks like a cross. And Palo Cortado in Spanish apparently means cross. It means two sticks crossed or something. So basically, yeah, that's where the name comes from. It's not like a name of a person or a region or anything like that. It's just literally that cross line that is on it. And if you've ever seen a bottle of Palo Cortado, it has like that little cross thing on it. Anyways, so that's the story between behind the sherry and Palo Cortado. Let's now get to the whiskeys and talk about them. So I'll start with the Springbank. The Springbank, I reviewed in my channel maybe a couple of months ago when it first came out. This was a shared bottle, as you can see. It is quite dented. So I've sampled a few to my friends, and it was a shared bottle to begin with. So it's not like I've had a lot of experience with it. I was not overly pleased with this release, to be honest. I much preferred the Pedro Jimenez. So Springbank is putting 5 of these whiskeys over 5 years, and this is the second in the series. And if you paid attention to what I was saying, then the order of these will make sense. So the order is going from basically the most sweet, the most oxidative, to the least oxidative, the most fresh, right? So and that's why the aging is like this. So the first one they did was the PX. The PX was 7 years. They're all 10 years. The PX was 7 years in bourbon barrels, 3 years in Pedro Jimenez, because Pedro Jimenez is the most sticky, kind of like deep flavor that they have, right? The next one was the Palo Cortado, because Palo Cortado is basically, again, like a very rare hybrid aged sort of product, right? The next one is the Amontillado, which is this was the accidental. Amontillado would be the intentional hybrid one. And then after that they're doing Manzanilla, and Manzanilla is the chamomile or one of the fresh ones, and then the last one is Fino, which is like the most fresh one. And each year, I believe what they're going to do is they're going to like age 1 year less in the bourbon and 1 more year in the sherry. And that makes sense, because by the time you get to Fino, you're going to be 5 years. Well, I don't know. By the time you get to Fino, you want to spend more time in the sherry cask because it has less influence, right? If you leave something in a Pedro Jimenez for a very long time, it's just gonna basically just be overwashed by Pedro Jimenez. And I have to say honestly, like in the 10-year Springbank Pedro Jimenez, it was like really drenched in Pedro Jimenez, and it was one of the reasons why I liked it in some ways, but also one of the reasons why if you really like Campbelltown whiskeys, you may not really love that because it's like drenching the character in just sherry, right? So yeah, as you're getting less sherries that are less full-bodied, you can age them more in that. Probably instead of 7.3, they should have done more like 9.1. It's kind of interesting because even this one is 6 years in bourbon and 4 years in Palo Cortado, versus the Glen Scotia, which we'll get to next. This one is aged for almost, I think, 12 years in bourbon casks, and then finished for only 8 months in Palo Cortado, right? So they're both finished, but this is finished much less. It's only 8 months. Let me get this out of the box. This box is actually like super cool. It's called the Glen Scotia Icons of Campbelltown. It's 12-year-old whiskey, right? And the the thing about this whiskey is that it has like a cool story behind it, and I think they're gonna release 5 of them, and the artwork is super cool, and it's supposed to have this on the back. There's this QR code which was supposed to go to a story that tells us about the mermaid, but I tried to go to it and it just goes to a page not found, so I'm not sure. But I think it's cool to read this story back here. You can probably fast forward if you're not interested, but I think the story is kind of cool because I like whiskey that has some story. I did try this before, FYI, and I think it's a great whiskey. So I'm not just, I didn't buy it just for the artwork. That would be stupid. But I think it's nice when they make an effort to put some artwork versus like the Springbank. There's no artwork at all. So, all right, let me read the story here. So Campbelltown single malt Scotch whiskey, icons of Campbelltown. Once a meeting point for celebration and storytelling, the Campbelltown Market Cross is an enduring symbol of the tight-knit community that ensured Glen Scotia prevailed. Carved into the face of the cross are a number of mysterious icons, a series of saints and beasts that have formed the basis for many a good tale over a dram. The Icons of Campbelltown series celebrates the cross and its central position in our community. We're delighted to partner with illustrator and concept artist Joel, Joel Holtzman for the first release and the most well-known icon, the Mermaid. Number 1, the Mermaid. While there have been numerous mermaid sightings reported in Campbelltown's neighboring coves and beaches over the years, none have been so hauntingly detailed as that of October 1811, when distilling in the town was growing to new heights. Under oath, a young local man named John McIsaac from Corfin gave a long and surprisingly detailed account of his encounter with a long-haired, half-human, half-ambitious form covered in scales with a green fan-like tail. For almost 2 hours he was able to observe the creature lounging upon the black rocks of the seacoast, impervious to the strong storm and wild seas that lashed the shore. Anywhere else John's testimony might have been dismissed as a result of a dram too many, but in Campbelltown our community takes the word of a trusted friend seriously. His long and eerily detailed account was heard in full and then further substantiated by our community members from a neighboring farm. As it stands, John's sightings remain one of the most recounted and least contested mermaid sightings on record. A story from Campbelltown stands the test of time, just like our whiskey. Okay, non-chill filtered, natural color, cask strengths, all the things that we love. By the way, this Springbank is also natural color and non-chill filtered, but it's not cask strength. But it is a healthy 50% ABV, so 55% ABV, so not too bad. I don't know why they didn't go with cask strength. Probably because they wanted to get a little bit more out of it. Okay, the limited edition Campbelltown single malt whiskey pays a fitting tribute to John's Mermaid. Matured exclusively in the finest bourbon barrels, this unpeated 12-year-old has been finished for 8 months in Palo Cortado sherry casks, a rare choice of wood, almost as special and hard to find as mermaids. Okay, so it's wrong to call it a type of wood. It's not really a type of wood. It is a special cask, I guess, where it started its life as a pheno matured sherry, and then somehow the yeast floor went away, and the rest of it was oxidative. So it's not like the wood was any different. It's the same type of wood, but it's just the type of sherry at the end of it was different. Okay, the result is a sweet and nutty character, fittingly interwoven with subtle maritime nuances, bracing Atlantic sea breeze notes on the nose, and a signature Glen Scotia saltiness on the palate. Okay, cool. That's enough talking. let's pour these out, and I have, as you can see, tried this before. I'm going to put this down now, even though this is a really cool bottle, and I'm going to pour a little bit of these. Let me start by the Springbank first. So if you remember last time I tried this, compared to the PX, I wasn't a huge fan because there was some acidity and astringency that I got as it was going down. It was like really like kind of sharp, and there was some metallic notes. It felt like it's attacking me rather than like allowing me to enjoy it. So let's see if that's changed now that it's been in this bottle for quite a while. So that's a very inviting nose. It is, and even though it's Springbank, I'm not getting a lot of peat, but I do smell a little bit of peat. And there's this like jammy, kind of like a overcooked orange marmalade type of note to it. But there's also a slight acidic tone. Um, it's a sharpness that goes beyond the ethanol. It's more of a acidic kind of note that, if you're not careful, like it kind of burns a little bit. Okay, let's try it. Yeah. Um, I really want to enjoy this, but yeah, there's something very acidic about it. As it goes down, it really like even, I drink bourbons that are like 70% alcohol ABV, right? And they don't they don't bother my throat so much. I feel like this, it just brings out some weird, um, you know, prickly notes that are kind of acidic in nature and somewhat metallic, and they completely ruin the experience for me. This is definitely not a whiskey that I would go to for enjoyment. It's more of a, it's an interesting experience, and I kind of like want to try it. But if I take a very small amount and the acidity doesn't hurt, then I can taste the jammy notes and it's enjoyable. But anything more than a micro amount, and it really gets messed up. I wonder, this might actually get better with water. So I should try it with water. I will come back at the end and try it with water. Okay, let's compare the Mermaid, the Glen Scotia 12 Mermaid. Okay, straight away on the nose, this is more jammy and more inviting. There is a very slight tinge of that acidity, but it's very faint. It's mostly like the sweet jammy notes that come that are super enjoyable. Obviously, this is not peated, and I don't get any peat on the nose. The jammy notes are very comparable. So as I didn't have any experience with Palo Cortado, but now I do. I can definitely tell that they are the same type of like sherry. It's definitely distinct from Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez that I've tried more often. Okay, let's try it on the palate. Oh my god, that's infinitely more enjoyable. There is none of that acidic notes to kind of ruin the experience, and it's way more mouth coating. There's just like a thick layer of jammy notes that cover my tongue and like go around, and it's way more enjoyable. From an ABV perspective, it is 54.1%, so it's like very similar, 55 versus 54.1. Of course, this is cask strength, so it's not watered down at all. And if this was watered down, it's a very small amount. I think they probably shouldn't even They probably should not have watered it down at all. But this is really enjoyable and it's great. Take one more sip. Yeah, this is super enjoyable. It's very unique. There's the jammy note is it lingers right at the end, like all the way through. It's like super viscous and kind of mouth coating, and then at the end, it's just lingering on and on. Very enjoyable. I would um, I would give this a really high mark. I think like I'm definitely gonna buy a backup. Um, I think Glen Scotia is given that it's a Campbelltown brand that is like lesser known than Springbank. It really is a brand that deserves more recognition. I had to pay 200 and well, I paid more than that for this one, right? For this bottle, I paid basically 190 for half a bottle, right? So almost $400. I did manage to get a backup from Plum Jack Wines for around 250 plus tax, um, which or maybe it was 250 all in. I don't remember, but and to me that was like a good deal because the second round is way more. But I got this for around 140 out the door from KNL Wines, and it is really, really amazing. I think they have like, a few in stock still, so I definitely will order a backup. And I think uh, even if you like sherry finished whiskeys and you're not a fan of peat, then this is quite a nice bottle to have. I might actually order two because really there's only one other Glen Scotia that is not peated, and that was the one from a couple of years ago. That was the Bordeaux cask. That one came to Costco, and I was able to get it for like $60, so I got a bunch of them. Um, but this one, well, I haven't even found it in Europe. I'm surprised that KL Wines has it, and then they haven't run out. So yeah, the that's all the better for me. And my channel is not very popular, so it's not like if I say this is amazing, it's going to run out. So I'll put the word out there, and one day when I have my backup already, maybe other people recognize it as well. Okay, well, this was a really long episode, but I did quite a lot of research for it. So if you like this episode, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification thing, because interestingly, the last couple of episodes I put out, they only got like a couple of tens of maybe they got like between like 50 and 70 views after a week, which was very disappointing. So I'm hoping that this episode was more interesting, and hopefully I'm approaching 1,000 subscribers now, and I would love for people to kind of like watch the content more and give me feedback on what you want to watch, so I can put out more content that you enjoy. Anyways, thanks for joining me this time, and I hope to see you next time. Take care and have a good one.